Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast explores the transition to net zero and the systems driving real change in how we move, live and power our world. Every week I sit down with the people leading that change, those offering insight, innovation and impact in many ways people don't fully see until they hear their stories. If you're ready for real conversations that inspire action and drive change, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and join us on this journey. And let's cut through the noise and build a better future together. Hi everyone and welcome back to Electric Evolution. Today I have Rebecca Denyer, who's a wonderful lady. We've spoken a few times already and she's the co-founder of Sebring. We're in a WhatsApp group called Women in EV and you just came across to me as such a genuine people-focused, people-centred person, which
thank you.
Totally rang wonderful bells for me. So let's start off by talking about Rebecca. Who are you? Where did you come from? And what did you do before Sebring, which is a vehicle manufacturer, but you're just so perfect to talk about this.
Well, I've done a lot. So I'm originally a farmer's daughter, grew up in the countryside, was quite keen to flee the countryside and get into city life. So I did move quite soon as I could, and went into London, did a few jobs there. So I originally trained as an accountant, not because perhaps I wanted to be an accountant, partly because unfortunately I was a bit of an all-rounder and I loved maths and I loved art. Not quite sure how you can combine the two, but I'm quite creative, but I ended up going down this professional route, and that was fun for a time. I mean, I was probably the most frustrating management accountant there was. I used to present my board figures as a comic book and the real book, the real management accounts pack. So I was probably quite frustrating to work with. But soon I kind of went into consultancy. I kind of moved around a bit. I ended up working in public sector as well as private sector. And long story short, I came back round and just got into marketing eventually, and then set up a creative agency. So I ran that for about 13 years, which was really, really fun. So my whole spectrum of kind of life has been able to business strategy, as well as finance, but understanding every single aspect of a business. And when I was a management consultant, I also did sort of work in manufacturing for a little bit. I've got a very small amount of automotive experience, very small. But yeah, and then sort of latterly in sales and marketing, and a software company as well. So very eclectic background, but always ultimately love driving and love cars. So that's always been in the background. So even as a kid, my 12th birthday, I had my first car, a Morris Marina. A nice brown one, and I drove that on the fields, and I picked up the children in the village and we'd drive around the fields and have a few accidents, and that's kind of where the love of freedom that you get with driving comes from, and that's what I did, and we'd pretend that I didn't end up in a ditch occasionally, and my father always had a blind eye to things and would say, "Did you have fun today?" And I'd be like, "Yes." So that's kind of where the passion for driving came from. And obviously I drove the odd tractor in my time, tractor and trailer. Summertime on the farm was good fun as you just got stuck in. But that's kind of always been there, and I've always loved classic cars. So that really has been the main focus. I in all the jobs I've had company cars, and one company I worked for particularly, every week I'd get a different car, and it was just brilliant. The boys at work got this great car for you to have, and I was like, fantastic. So I did get very spoiled. I enjoyed all that time, but I just have a thing about cars and driving and just the freedom that it gives. But the real key thing is just the old style cars that are just so beautiful, and everybody looks. They want to tell you a story about. My grandfather had that car. Or I remember packing 7 of us into a little Mini and going on the school run or something. So all these little stories come out, and that's the piece about cars. It brings people together. It really does. And everybody's got a story. So even if they're not into cars, they've all got a story. So their father owned this, or somebody's got a story. And it just, classic cars particularly, often they don't go. There's always breakdown stories. but people
Yeah.
always smile and they go, oh yeah, I love that car. Oh, it was such a nice looking thing, and just made me smile. So it just brings back that nostalgia. So that's kind of a big bit about my background, and some of the interests that I have. But cars and driving have always been in there. Yeah, some of my flatmates, former flatmates, they'll know full well we used to go for a spin, and quite a fast one at times. But we, I've always had fun. I'm really sensible now. That's kind of weird. I have turned a full circle. I'm very sensible now, but partly being a parent, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It does that to you, doesn't it? I've just written down, you've just reminded me. So I suppose I had my dad always loved cars, and my brothers who are a lot older than me, they did. And I remember the first car that my dad had was this red and cream Humber Scepter, and
oh well,
it had like a wooden interior. It was gorgeous,
yeah,
but I didn't appreciate it at the time. I see photos now of it, and when we, kind of they pop up on my Google display and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, that was a really nice car. And it was funny because
yeah.
when my brothers got older, so I oh my God, this is a story. I was kind of sorry, my brothers were 15 and 16 when I was born. There's a massive age gap
Wow.
between us. So what they'd do was when they had cars, they'd always bring them to show my dad. It didn't matter what car it was. I remember
Yeah.
one that one of my brothers called the Flying Pig because it was that huge. It was like, oh, it was huge. But then my other brother had like a yellow MGB GT soft top, and he
Yeah.
called it the Little Yellow Chicken.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's very, if it's in your family,
Yeah.
it's more likely
Definitely.
to, unless yeah, you're more likely to get it. And it's funny because my nephew now, who was 40 last year, bless him, he's restoring a Porsche. I think he's got like an old Porsche 911.
Wow.
So yeah,
It'll
it's
be hard
it's
work,
it's
but good.
it's definitely yeah, it's definitely in the family. So I totally get your interest. And I remember, I think my dad taught my brothers to drive when they were about 15, in kind of like when you were saying about on the farm.
Yeah.
This was some kind of disused tip that my dad used to take down to learn to drive, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I
You
didn't
see, you
have
just
that.
don't do that today. It's quite funny. I mean, my children can't have that experience because they don't live on a farm, and you can't just throw them outside. But I literally remember on my birthday, my 12th birthday, and I just give them the keys, and the tuition I received was, "Well, go on then, get on with it." And I'm like, "What do you mean, get on with it?" And that's why I probably drive quite poorly. So when I did take my test, I remember my instructor saying, "Well, you can drive. You have no road sense, do you?" And no, just no qualms about anything. And I was like, "Well, no, because I'm not used to traffic in the field." I'm like, so yes, I had to unlearn a few things, but. And I had an older brother,
One
so
thing,
he always came back with a different car, and he went through lots of classic cars himself because they were the cheapest things to buy, really low
mm,
insurance. So, and they still are actually. So for a young driver, it's quite a good option. And he used to just run them into the ground and then buy another one, And that's how. So I saw a lot of those cars too, and he had various types as well. So that's quite good. That's part of the story, I guess.
So you had when you were younger, you had a Sebring, didn't you? Am I right? But I mean, you've had
Yes.
cars and
Well,
all sorts of stuff,
as an
haven't you?
adult. So yes, so my husband and I, so we set up Sebring, but so we always had classic cars in the garage, and more often
Mm.
than not, mine sat in the garage, and he would firmly say, "Do not go out in the car today because I'm not around to pick you up and fix it, or don't go out." And it was really sad. I remember one having a really lovely. It was a little Morris. I can't even think of the word now. Morris Minor convertible, which was immaculate. It had only had two owners and
Mm.
then me, and it was absolutely immaculate. And she sat in the garage the whole time with a little leaky spot underneath. But anyway, we used to sort of trade them and swap them out and go for something else that we liked. But we had a Sebring at one time, which was an Austin Healey 3000 replica, and that was one of our favourite vehicles. but we let that go. We swapped that out for something else. But really enjoyed that one, have to say. And then ironically, in our journey, we ended up acquiring the Sebring brand. So it's funny how you sort of go in a full circle. But yeah, so I mean, we were both working. We both had our own businesses. My husband had a technology company. I had a creative agency. And I think we were just getting to that point where we were done services for so long, and we just wanted a product. And we actually ordered our first EV. And in that time period of placing the order and waiting for it to arrive, we sort of went down the rabbit hole of looking at EVs, looking at energy, starting to be thinking a bit more sustainably. And you do get caught up in all of that. And whilst we're at it, it was just before, so it was the end of 2019, so before the lockdowns happened the following year, we stumbled across a TV show, Vintage Voltage, which was run by, which was following the story of Moggy from Electric Classic Cars, and converting classic cars. And that was it. That just sealed it for us. We said, wow, that's how we can have reliable classic cars. It's so obvious. And we're absolutely amazed by what he was doing, and watched back-to-back episodes to the point of ridiculousness. You know, it was like, should we watch another one? Yes. You know, so literally back-to-back, particularly that Christmas. I think we just watched we were off and we were like, let's just watch it. The kids were frustrated, like, what are they on? You know, but we realised that was going to be the solution, we thought. So what happened was, during 2020, we learned everything we could. We're not engineers, but we learned everything we could, and then decided to convert one of our cars. And that first car, it was amazing. Literally, it was amazing. It's like, it works. You switch it on and it works, and it's quiet. And then you thought, oh, okay, this is good. And then we realised we actually created more problems for ourselves. So what transpired as a solution gave us a product that wasn't quite right, because it was still an old car. It still had rattles and bangs, which you could then hear even more so because it was silent. So whilst there were advantages of it being electric, it then sort of gave other issues. And in that time, we started to get customers, but each project became quite a minefield. So it would be a full restoration job. A client would say, my car is immaculate, and you pop it on the ramp, and he said, well, if it's immaculate, how come I can put my finger in this? Or it's not, it needs, I'm sorry, your budget has to go from here to there. And that was always a challenge. And you're compromising, you're fitting battery packs into awkward spaces. And ironically, the very first car that we converted has recently, so it's been sold on, and that has just been recently redone by another conversion specialist who've now put more battery packs in the back just to give it a better range, so it's a more usable car. And it's quite fun to see. I'm glad that they've done it. That's a really good investment, but that's the compromise. You have to fit more batteries to get range, and you do need a decent bit of range really to make it worthwhile. So that's why we kind of thought we're just not quite suiting the problem here. If we could have a classic car that gave you all the emotion and the feelings and excitement and turn heads, that you do when you're driving a classic, but it was brand new, then that has to be the answer. And that's how it all started. So we started to, consider about, building a car from scratch, what that would mean, looked at what the other OEMs do, which is a skateboard platform. And then in that time, we also ended up acquiring the Sebring brand, purely because the gentleman who owned it at the time was literally based not far from us. Went to have a chat with him, and he said, would you like it? So that was how the journey started. So we literally changed from conversions to developing a new car, a new skateboard platform from scratch, which we soon recognised we could pop any car body on top. And that's where we're at today. So we have 3 models of our own, and then the platform as well, which is available for other industries to use. So that's how the journey came about.
And they're beautiful. And I will have the links in the show notes because people need to. You want to have a look at them because they are absolutely gorgeous. So you've gone from restoring the classic cars and making them electric, like you said, and then to kind of you've got your manufacturing plant and your your different manufacturing lines. What other complications did going from the restoration to complete new build, but with that kind of that vintage look about it? What were the things that kind of that you'd not realised that started popping up for you and going, oh, I hadn't thought about that one? Because this is just what happens, isn't it, when you're starting with a business and growing?
Yeah, I think we just assumed that you'd follow the rules, you follow the process. It must be quite straightforward. And our naivety and not being engineers meant that we challenged everything and said, well, why do we have to do it this way? I'm really sorry. Barking dog. So I think the issues were that everything just takes longer. And we've chatted about this before. Everything takes longer than you wanted to. And what we came at this from a conversion point of view. So a sustainable angle. We saw that classic cars, we didn't want them to go to waste. We wanted to keep them going. And in the same way with the new vehicles, we don't want to just be using brand new stuff or using more of the Earth's resources. Why can't we use more second-hand parts? And to register a brand new car, you can only have one main part, as refurbished and we thought, well, that's not good enough. Why do we need to create new things? So I challenged this, but because the rules are set out, rules that are in place, new cars can only do this, then you are stuck by those rules. And so I really challenged it, and it took 9 months of me pushing lots of buttons to try and get an answer, like how can we be more sustainable? We've come at this from this angle. We have to be sustainable. We want to use more refurbished parts. There's nothing wrong with these parts. In fact, often the refurbished parts are better than the new anyway. Why can't we do that? It doesn't mean that you're going to save more money, potentially. So your bill of materials may not come down because you're using more refurbished parts. Often refurbished parts are the same price or can be more expensive. So it's not a cost saving necessarily, but it's actually just how can we be better and use less of the Earth's resources? Because we know that we're producing something new and there's going to be issues around that. We're using energy to produce something new. But why can't we just use less of the Earth's resources? So all of that was quite a challenge, and we have got an answer, which is great. But there's things that we could improve, and there's a lot more that we can do, and that's what we're working on at the moment. So, unfortunately, when you order something, it comes wrapped in single-use plastic. Why doesn't it just come in paper or card? All those silly frustrations. Is how can we improve that? And it's all very well saying, we'll just write to the supplier and say you want it wrapped in paper. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of layers here, and we uncovered all that in the supply chain. There's a huge amount of layers. And then also as a product itself, okay, we are using new things to create a new platform, but the car body or the materials that we use for the interior, could we do something different here? Could we use something recycled? Could we use fabrics that have second life fabric, so ex-army surplus uniform or whatever? Could we use something that's different? I mean, leather is already a byproduct, so at least you're using something there. Obviously not everybody agrees with using animal products, but there are other products out there. We're looking at mushroom leather, for instance. There's all sorts of things that we could do that is different and better. So yeah, that
mushroom leather, blimey, that's an interesting one. Where did you find that one?
Well, again, that was a networking event, almost a chance conversation actually, and to discover that this actually existed, and then you uncover it and you start researching it and realize actually it's been existed for a while. There's lots of materials like that you just don't appreciate exist. There are specialists. We have a consultant who's located very close to the factory who specialises in looking for different materials. It's such an eye-opener. I've been hugely pleasantly surprised and challenged that really, where did we go wrong? We went down this plastic route, and And yes, okay, it works, it lasts. We know how effective it is. It's also quite inexpensive. But why are we doing this? Is that the right thing? So I've really kind of challenged the flow a little bit, and there's one area in particular that I really do want to change, and that's our car bodies. Because at the moment we're making them out of fiberglass, which is using fossil fuels. It's vile. I mean, I have a piece of glass stuck in my hand. I don't even make them myself. So that's quite frustrating. But what I'm trying to do is look at, we've got a project running at the moment to change the use of the hand-laid fiberglass to be plant fiber and plant resins. It's been done before. It was done many years ago. Henry Ford produced a car back in 1941 that was basically plant fiber, and it was 7 times stronger than steel. He even hit an axe at the car to test its strength, and literally there was no dent. It just bounced back into shape because it was a natural fiber. So, and he was trying to be something progressive, and he was challenging, well, if we built our cars out of this, if we used plant, so like ethanol, to fuel our vehicles, we would reduce the greenhouse effect, which would be huge. And he stated that in the 40s, but unfortunately the fossil fuel industry squashed that, and the paper industry, because they knew they'd go out of business if they went down his route. And it's been done since. There's a gentleman in America, Bruce Dietzen, who built a couple of cars about 7-8 years ago, and I've spoken to him, and so I'm hoping to go down that route. We are working with some specialists locally, and also talking to farmers locally. So I am a farmer's daughter, as I said, and I really want to grow a car. So I've been reaching out.
That sounds amazing. Can I have one, please?
Yes, I'd grow one. I'll grow a whole load. But that's where I'd like it to be. And the fact that we could grow a car in a field that's however many miles away from the factory, gets all processed, and then we use that fibre to build our cars would just be incredible. So yes, that whole world exists, and there's a lot more people that are realizing the benefits of plant fibers, and they're not just to the car industry. It's to all sorts of building. You can use these fibers for all sorts of things, from textiles through to loads of uses. It's really exciting, but it needs a compelling story. So we are a compelling story, and we have now a good link with hemp processing plant actually locally to us, and a group of farmers who are growing hemp, and we're exploring that at the moment. So we're trying to get from hemp field to forecourt. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was going to say, so on the plant fibre side of things, and hemp especially, like you say, is the plant fibre, is that a byproduct? Or is that, I suppose my question is is what you're talking about something that a farmer wouldn't need because they've extracted all the main bits that they need, and actually this is you can take the rest of it for the vehicle?
So it's part. So hemp itself is a really fibrous plant, and it's a really good plant for. It's organic by nature. You don't use any fertilizer for it, and it's a really good plant to use if you're rotating your crops, because it's really good for the soil. So it's just easy, and it grows incredibly high, and you can just harvest it with a standard harvester. The product itself has got the fibres, plus it's got the oil as well. And the oil could be used in healthcare, in various uses. And that's probably what it's typically known for, rather than the fibre itself.
Yes.
You're
right.
Fibre is the bulk of the product. And it also grows in the UK really well, which is quite surprising given our climate. It grows incredibly well in the States, but it does work here. Obviously it's a short cycle, so you grow it from April to July, and it's a good crop to have. Yeah, and it also mops up loads of CO2, so it's such a good plant for the environment at so many levels. And it's good if you've got a lot of, say, if you have sheep and you've got a lot of grassland, and then you want to just put a crop in that short time period. So it just helps rotating things for a farmer, and that's growing. There are people locally to us who there's a big group across the UK who are talking together and working together, but it's grown under license, so there's some complexity around that. The Home Office used to issue the license. It's now been put over to DEFRA. So, in the Cotswolds, we've got some very notable farmers. One in
there
particular.
There is one specific notable. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a specific notable farmer that's not that far away from you, isn't there?
Not at all. And it would just be amazing if he got on board too, because I think, he's done a lot for farming. I have huge respect for him. And he can see, it'd be great if he was involved. So I have tried to reach out to his team, and I'll still keep reaching out, and we'll get him on board one day. If you write up his
let's mention him, because come on. So we are, in case you've not realised, we are talking about Jeremy Clarkson, who is very close to where Rebecca is in the Cotswolds. So I tell you what, if you've got a message that we can share, you'd like to share for Jeremy,
well, I have actually reached out already to the team, and they have kindly responded. So short of me stalking him and literally parking a car outside his house, which is really kind of them. And I would just like to get him involved in this story, because I would like to be growing cars. So from field to forecourt is my catchphrase, and it's a good crop to have. So I think he's tried most other crops, most other animals on his farm.
Yes.
So
I've got an idea. That's how it goes, isn't it? I've got an idea.
Well, let's do a thing, Jerry. Let's do a thing. So that's it. And I know EVs haven't been up his street, but I think he's warming. He's coming around to it. But just to, why not? And also the hemp itself, you can use it for concrete. So 1.5 acres of hemp can produce a 4-bedroom detached home. So you could literally grow houses.
Wow.
There's huge scope, and we're on an island. There's so much more that we could do here, in lots of ways. So energy, I won't go down all of that now, but there's lots of things we could do, and I'd love us to be part of that story in the UK.
But I mean, that we're talking a double whammy when it comes to Jeremy Clarkson, aren't we? We're talking about his love of cars and his love of farming that comes together and melds, doesn't it, to something, especially if you can put these ideas, he can see the Sebring and can see what you're making. He's already taken a Renault 5 electric out for a test drive, and from what I saw, he likes it,
he gave it
which
a
is
very
great.
Positive review, yes, very positive. So
exactly.
So
actually, yeah, getting him involved in something like this. Sometimes you just need that voice, don't you, to start kind of moving things forwards. And I know the farming community has found him very, very helpful. I know the councils might not.
Well, what he's achieved in a short time, I mean, he's educated this country and people overseas as to the realities of agriculture and how tough it is. And I think they've done a fantastic job. He and Lisa are incredible. So, yes, I would like them to be part of our journey. So I'll keep pushing the door.
I think because he's so close to you, it would be ridiculous, even if he just comes and has a conversation with you. I would love to see from field to forecourt. You just need that. So I've been to the brewery, that's not that far from their brewery, that's not that far from Clarkson's farm, and you've got a big picture of Caleb and Jeremy Clarkson. We kind of need that slogan underneath as well, with a car with the Sebring and saying from field to forecourt, because I think, my God, that's such a phrase. It's just brilliant. I love it.
No, it would be great. All right. Either way, I'm still pushing ahead, and we're literally pushing ahead with it ourselves. But we have tried to work with some university influence, but that's quite slow. So just grabbing the ball by the horns, and we're just going to do it anyway. So
I think you should camp out at his farm. Just need to.
I don't want to stalk.
Or just keep planning a spot. Yeah, just turn up at Jimmy Scott the days that you're open and just keep going in and buying a jar of jam or some mushrooms or something like that.
That'd be sick of me if I did that.
You know, that's the way to do it, honestly. I was gonna say, so going back to suppliers and you kind of saying that, and my God, you just blown my mind because of my continuous improvement background, and I know you've done a bit of process improvement stuff as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
My sort of lean side of stuff that I kind of get involved in goes right back to Henry Ford and the Model T, because he was he was the kind of the granddaddy of kind of continuous improvement, really. That blew me away when you said about him. And was it the Model T that he kind of made the body
Do you
out
know,
of
I
out
can't
of
remember
plant
which mod.
fiber?
I can't remember which model it would have been, but yeah, it was 1941, 1942.
Yeah,
So that's how far back it was, and he literally had
that's amazing.
adverts and paperwork to say this will improve,
Wow.
stop the greenhouse effect, and that's what he was talking about then, and nobody would listen to him. So someone like that really knew his stuff. But yes, yeah. So
Mm.
Bruce Dietzen, who built a car, about 7-8 years ago, he thought he was just a bit ahead of his time. So hopefully we've got the timing right now. But there's other composites too that are equally fantastic, and we met someone recently who's developed it's another plastic, but it is made out of waste material that's actually natural. And that's just
Mm.
incredible, and it's really strong. So again, there are other options, and that's why shouldn't we try these things? You could, hand build a car from aluminium, and aluminium's positive in a lot of ways. But again, why not use some of the waste products or products that we naturally create? So that's quite exciting.
I was going to say, and we still do get a lot of innovation in this country, and I always talk about it, So, are there any innovators out there that are kind of in the UK that are using sort of recycled materials? Because you said you can't use sort of like, I know it's not an engine parts, but do you know what I mean? There are certain vehicle parts that you can't use that are recycled. But are there companies that are involved in the supply chain that are starting to kind of move to at least using recycled materials over here?
Well, I think that there's a huge challenge in sustainability. So I think on the whole, most people and most businesses want to be sustainable. The challenges come when you actually are prevented from doing so for regulatory reasons, which I can barely say, but also just because of the amount of layers in our supply chains. And
Mm.
it's really hard. It's ridiculously hard, and yet it shouldn't be. It should be so simple. And I think I've been frustrated by just silly things, parts coming in single-use plastic, and just difficulties of trying to identify the origin of the original supplier. From there's just so many layers. We had an issue. So when the tariffs came in, what we didn't realize was that some parts that we were ordering from Europe were actually going to the States and then out again to us. So they weren't even coming directly from Europe. So can you imagine what a waste of fuel or just the whole inefficiency around that? It's probably seen as efficient by the supplier in Europe because maybe it's actually cheaper, ironically, or it may be quicker even. There are so many layers to everything that nothing is straightforward. And that's one thing I've learned in this business, that absolutely nothing is straightforward, even though it should be, and on paper it looks like it should be. And that's the piece that's frustrated me. It's like, well, why can't we do it this way? Why is it so hard? But there's just so many more layers to things, and I think, but on the whole, most people do want to make better decisions, and price comes into it, obviously. It is much cheaper to do what we've always done rather than be the innovators and start doing something differently. Or ironically, most of these things are going backwards in time. So if you look at how sustainable we were many years ago, unfortunately before fossil fuel usage, it's that is the part of the reason. We were much more sustainable. We reused things. People made do. So we are having to go backwards in times to go forwards. But I think as a whole, most businesses want to make the right decisions. But unfortunately, there are barriers that make it difficult. And that's why we need to bring in people, notable people, celebrities, people who have, a passion for something, to be, to help with, maybe the car industry, or maybe whatever industry it is. We need that influence, because no government's going to save us. It takes time. If you wait for a government to solve a problem, you will be waiting a long, long time, for a number of reasons. So I'm not going to get political here, but we have to consciously make those decisions. And that's why I pushed with DVLA. I pushed back and said, your rules don't allow us to do X, Y, Z. Why not? How can we change it? Rather than just accepting it, which I think most people have had to do because it's easier, it's quieter, it's quicker, just to accept the status quo. Whereas I'm very much about, no, sorry, it's not the right thing to do. Let's do the right thing if we can, whatever the right thing is. It is actually, I'm now leading on to something else here, but it's actually really hard to do the right thing all the time. Nobody wants you to do the right thing because it costs more. Or it might challenge somebody. And that's another frustration I've had, that, no, I'm sorry, I want to treat people fairly. I want to do this that way. I want to honour that arrangement. And we've had that challenge. We've had that challenge with investors not wanting to honour what we wanted to do. And it is hard to do the right thing. It genuinely is. And we're open and transparent as can be, and maybe to our detriment sometimes, but we are trying to do something and do it better, and do it the right way. But that isn't easy. It's not an easy, but it's just by nature of who we are that we want to do the right thing.
Exactly.
I'm not saying we always achieve it, because we can't, and that's the other frustration. We can't always achieve what we want to achieve, and we have lots of challenges that we still have to overcome. But the desire is there, our intent is there, and people can put blockers in front of us, but ultimately that's what we're trying to do. And I think there's a lot of businesses like that. You just have to find those businesses and try and work with them.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And like you say, it's not easy, but nothing is it? It's just kind of. I suppose it's a bit like being in in a boxing match, really. You just have to you get knocked down, you get back up again, and just keep moving forward. And I'm finding that myself with my businesses. We've kind of talked about, my businesses, But I was going to ask you, so you said about the DVLA rules. What are they that you were just mentioning?
Yeah, so obviously the DVLA have obviously got to have a set of rules to follow when you register a new car. And we found this with the conversions. When you try and register a vehicle that's been converted, they hadn't got the processes in place for that to happen. They now have. It's taken a lot of effort, a lot of lobbying. Some notable people in the industry have done really good job on that. But it's only because they didn't have the processes involved, and to change them is lengthy. I really don't understand why it needs to be so complicated. Yes, I understand about safety, and I understand about the issues around that. However, it has taken a long time, and partly because it's such a small part of what DVLA do. So 90%, 95% of what DVLA do is standard stuff. And then there's the small percentage of people like us who are jumping up and down saying, well, what about us? And look at what we're trying to do. But because it's such a small percentage, it's probably not got the time available to spend on it. But that's what we're pushing against all the time. You're pushing against existing processes that need to be rewritten, because they just don't fit the box that we're trying to fit in. But on the whole, people understand it. It's just, how do you get to those right people? Because there are gatekeepers at every stage. You don't have a direct line anymore to people. All the public bodies are mostly home workers, and they have processes to follow, and it goes in a system, and you have to wait. And if it will fall out of the system because you might have filled out a form, online, but it falls out of the system because it just gets rejected because it doesn't fit the policy they've got in place. And then you have to go through a complaint process, and then that takes time. I can understand why things don't happen. I understand they've got processes to follow, but some common sense at times and the ability to speak to somebody would resolve all of this, rather than having a call handler who doesn't have the ability to do anything because they have to follow a process, and then it gets escalated and lost in the ether. So I think all those frustrations have been really challenging, and they will continue. But I'm like a dog with a bone at times, and I do keep going, and I don't let go of something unless I absolutely have to. Especially if I can see that there's a massive advantage to it, or benefit, and not like a in a good way, that is. So why couldn't we reuse more than one major component? Why couldn't we refurbish something and still classify it as new? So we've made huge headway, but we've still got a long way to go. And I think because we're small, that's been a challenge. Had we been a large OEM, I think people would sit up and listen. Because we're a small OEM, tiny, we're insignificant, even though we're incredibly innovative, incredibly passionate, and able to radically change the industry, and to show them, look, this is what we're doing and why, and it could be mainstream. But it requires everybody to come together and collaborate. And that's the other piece. How do you get everyone to the table to collaborate, to share knowledge? We've got so much knowledge, and there's other competitors who've got so much knowledge. Why aren't we pooling that together and working together? And I go and try and speak to our competitors, and most of them are actually quite receptive now, once they've kind of sort of stepped back and thought, what's she contacting us for? But I genuinely think it's, there's room for all of us in this market. And, why not share that knowledge? It took us 3 years to develop our product. Well, why on earth would somebody want to go through that? Why not just take our product and put your car body on top of it, or use our product in a different industry? Because it works, it's proven it works. Why not make it easier? And then it all helps all of us. So our platform got adopted by the film and production industry, and I can't even remember how that happened now. I genuinely cannot remember how it happened. It was just one of those things. And it's insane because the platform is silent. There's no emissions. You can use it for a large scale prop. So you could put a dinosaur on top of it, an animal, or a spaceship, or any vehicle, so it can be used for that. But also, because it's a power source, and of course your whole audience will understand this because you get very passionate about this, it's a power source, so you can plug things into it, and you can use it on set, you can use it on location, remote areas. If you're filming in the desert, you've got a power source sitting there. So that's why the film production industry jumped at the opportunity, because it's there, it works, and then they can tailor it for what they need. But it's not just the film production industry, of course, that leads into utilities, and then it's a power source. It's useful for getting into awkward spaces where a normal large size utility vehicles can't get to. So it's the platform is really adaptable for so many things. But why develop something new? Why not use what we've got and make it work for you? So we're open to lots of conversations. We have an awful lot of conversations going on at the moment in different industries, different spheres. But why don't we just collaborate? Let's work together. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That's good.
Maybe I don't know if that's just because it's a personality thing, whether being a woman makes a difference. I do feel that we do collaborate better, and in a different way. And I think the more that you have women on the teams, the room changes. So why not tap into that a little bit? So I'm really keen about sharing what we have, but also how can we help others with it. It's not just for us to benefit from, or our direct customers who buy our cars. There's other manufacturers, low-volume niche vehicle manufacturers. There's other industries that can benefit from it. So, don't reinvent the wheel. Just grab what we've got and make it work for you. So.
I think that's brilliant, and actually you just pointing out about that level of inclusivity as well. Kind of collaboration needs inclusivity. It's not about kind of keeping anybody out, is it? It's actually bringing everybody together to kind of work for the greater good, if you want
Yeah,
to, put it
yeah,
in that, in that way. Because I think that bit's really important. And do you know what? That's why that's how we got talking, wasn't it? Because I saw that from a leadership point of view for you, the fact that you wanted to reach out to people, that you were happy to reach out, and you wanted to collaborate, that just stood out. It spoke volumes to me, seriously.
yeah. Oh no, thank you. I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it? And it doesn't always
Mm.
work. Collaborations don't always work, and that we found that we've had a collaboration that hasn't worked the way that we hoped it would, and that's possibly just because we didn't have the same mindset on that, and that's okay. We were still friends, which is good. But genuinely, there are a lot of people out there who appreciate that actually together we're stronger, and it's better together. Yes, you'll have some niggles that you have to iron out, but actually it just makes more sense. So maybe I'm a bit idealistic, but why can't we just work together? It's like a big playground, isn't it? It's like, come on, children,
No,
let's come to the
I
party.
totally
Let's
get
enjoy
you.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask you this question, kind of staying on sort of like your leadership skills side. What has been the thing that has most surprised you about you since you started Sebring with your husband? What has been the thing that surprised you? I mean, the passion, it just comes out in your voice. It's obvious, but what about you? How have you felt about, I didn't think I'd be doing this?
I think every day I didn't think I'd be doing this. I've learned a lot about myself. I have, and I've learned a lot about my relationship with my husband as well. It's quite, we've had to pull together like no other couple. It feels like we've gone through so much. We live and breathe it. It is 24/7. There is no respite, and the level, the depth that we've gone to, the challenges that we have had and come through, and those that we have yet to come through, are vast, and you can't even share them with, it's just, there's just not time to share them with anyone, and at times you can't because you're just in the middle of it all. But I think I've learned a lot about myself and how I cope with that. The stress levels are ridiculous. I don't think my body is thanking me particularly, but I've definitely got more resilience than I thought. Things do not faze me. I mean, there are tears, of course there are. I'm human, and it's tough. It's ridiculously tough. Things that are promised don't happen, or you're replanning because the plans that you made were based on what you were told at the time, and then it's changed 100 times since last week. And then you've got client expectations to manage, and you can't share everything because there's just too much. But I've definitely learned that, we get through things each day. We still wake up and we get through. And I'm stronger than I thought I was. And I never thought we'd go through the challenges that we have. Nothing surprises me now. That genuinely is it. And possibly sadly, nothing surprises me now. It's like, well, what's next? Okay. So we got through the last mess, or we got through the last challenge. Let's proceed. But we've always been ourselves, and that's one thing. Being true to our values and to ourselves, that has possibly caused some of the issues, because not everybody likes that. They don't like you being open, or no, it's going to be done this way, the right way. And we're not cutting corners here. We take ownership for everything. So that is a challenge. But I've certainly never realised that we'd be this kind of strong force, and together our relationship clearly has changed. We've been together a long time, but this has been really tough few years for us. But we still smile, we still joke, we still get on. Thank goodness for that.
I think you've got
Perhaps
to
'cause
do. You've got to do working so
we don't have time for
collectively.
friendships because there's no time to see our friends and our family, and that's been quite hard. There's time you just think, no, we really are not spending any time with anyone else, and that's been a challenge. And hopefully that will get easier in time. But yeah, the depth of character that, I'm still passionate, I still care about people. There's decisions that you have to make that are not very nice, and it's not very nice having to say, look, we've got to cut costs here, or we've got to do this now. It's harsh, and those decisions are never nice to do, and it doesn't please me to have to make those decisions sometimes. But put my big girl pants on, and you have to make them, don't you?
You do.
Yeah. It is tough. It is tough at the top, and we're just a small business ultimately. So, but everybody in leadership has that to deal with, and I don't think people recognise how tough that is. Whatever size business you are, it doesn't matter whether you're a 1-man, 2-man, 20-man, 3,000-man. People at the top have the same issues. It's just different size zeros at the end of them, or different magnitude, isn't it? But it's the same pressure.
Very true.
It is, and it's the same pressure, but it's up to you to sort out. And that's one conversation we had this weekend, actually. So it's up to the founders, it's up to those people to sort it out. Everyone else can leave if they don't like it. They can change their mind. If a collab doesn't work, they just can walk away. If a director doesn't agree, just resign and go. Or everyone else can just leave. But the people who have set it up, who are running the show, they're the ones who have to pick up the pieces, whatever happens. And that's tough. It is tough. And I understand why people make decisions they do. And an employee might decide to leave. And that, that's sad. It is sad. I don't like that situation. We had an employee leave recently, and it was like, oh, really? And really sad. And then worst bit was, well, I like you guys as well. It's not leave, but that's quite frustrating. But a staff member can do that, and then you've got to pick up the pieces, haven't you? And keep going and fill that gap. And that could be us literally filling that gap, or trying to find some. That's the piece. You're always left with the responsibility. There's no let up. So it's just managing that and how you manage stress. I don't manage it, I don't think, very well. My body isn't very happy, but I play sport. I try and keep myself healthy and fit as best as I can. But that's one piece that I need to figure out a bit better, how to manage the stress better, because it does show itself physically in me, backache, neckache, whatever it is. Complications. And that long-term health, that can't be good. I'm sure if I went to see a GP, they would probably write me off for a while, but I haven't got time for the sick note, so all that, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about others, people who are not always who they say they are. And I know you can tell, you can get a vibe from somebody, but you learn a lot about people. And nothing surprises me. So
no, and you can't let things surprise you anyway, can you? They might, like I said, it's sometimes like being in a boxing match. You get knocked down, but then you have to get back up again. But look, I'm going to ask you one final question. So, looking at this from a hopeful point of view, what would you like to happen in the next 12 to 18 months then for Sebring?
I'd just like to see more of our cars on the road, happy faces. So where there have been delays, that those are now overcome and we can just move forward. And just to be in a place where, maybe I could take a day off or two. And do something more impactful. So, can we get this plant fibre car? Why not? Can we make that a mainstream product? And let's do something different. Let's put UK back on the map. Great Britain. Let's put Great back in it. I'm sounding like a politician now, but there are so many things that we can do, and we've got an opportunity here. And I think as a tiny business, small business, we can be really impactful. And I just would like to see that happen. I've just got to keep pushing. But yeah, there's lots of things, but then also to be able to give back, because at this moment in time, we're so small, we can't give back in the way I'd like to do. I'd like to bring in schools, students, and do more. We've got a scheme at the moment with some university students, but I can't give back in the way I'd like to. Or, can we work with, people with disabilities more, all sorts of things, just give back a bit more as a business. And that's tricky to do when you're very small and time poor. So if you can free up some time, let's give back and be more impactful in our community and extended community as well.
You'll get there. You'll get there. You've got so much power and kind of foresight and just, I'm not saying quiet confidence, but just, I think I look forward to seeing all the good things that come out, of Sebring in the future and actually, kind of getting the more film companies involved in buying the, having the platform to use for their kind of sustainability side of things. I just think, you're doing all the right things. So I'm just going to say, I want to see you, I want us to chat again in kind of 12, 18 months time and see how it's all going. And hopefully a lot of those issues will kind of, they'll have flattened out a little bit. Let's just keep our fingers crossed. And you'll have old Jezza Clarkson on board, of course, because
come on, Jeremy,
who wouldn't
you can do it. You want to.
Yeah, come on, Jeremy. Thank you. Anyway, listen, on that note, I'm just going to say it's been lovely talking to you. I've really enjoyed it. I think, and that I want to come up to the Cotswolds when it's nicer weather and go for a ride in one of your Sebrings. And
absolutely,
I can't wait. It'd just be wonderful. And just to be able to see them and how you manufacture them and all of the wonderful things that you've been doing. So thank you, Rebecca, ever so much for your time. I will share all your links in the show notes and make sure that people know where you are.
Oh, you star. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity and keep posted.
I will, definitely. So listen to everybody watching and listening. Check Sebring out. Really do. The cars look absolutely amazing. But share this. If you know Jeremy Clarkson, please share this, or anybody who you think might be influential in the sector who's interested, in actually bringing all of the things that Rebecca's been talking about to life, then please do. But on that note, I'm going to say thank you for watching and listening. Like, subscribe, share, and all of that lovely stuff. And I shall see you later. Bye. Thanks for watching Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're a charge point operator, local authority or stakeholder in EV charging, I'd love to talk to you about our Charge Point Evolution framework. It's designed to help you create a seamless EV driver journey, boost utilisation and maximise your return on investment. Alternatively, if you know someone who'd be a great podcast guest or might be interested in sponsoring an episode, you can email me on liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. Thanks again for watching.